Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Cynthia Hilston, but we know her as Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, everybody.
So, how are you? How's your night going?
Oh, it's pretty good. It's a school night for my three kids, so it's kind of, getting everybody ready for tomorrow, and dad's putting them to bed, so they're
Oh, he's
being
a good.
quiet so I can do this.
That's okay. He's a good sport. It's all right. I've had people on interviews and their little one pops in and nobody knew, but they told me later because I think she like crawled in. So nobody could tell, but she was like holding on to her legs. That was funny. And then
Aw.
somebody had fire trucks going off in the back. He's like, it's not my house with, so don't even worry. That's just life. That's what happens. It makes it interesting.
Yep.
So dive in now. I wanted to know, like, how'd you even get started, like writing? Because I'm a writer, so I'm interested in this.
Okay, so it goes back to when I was about 10 or 11. I started writing poetry. That was actually my first thing. And so we're talking over 30 years ago. And I was in like junior high age when I used to read the Babysitter Club books in the
Yes, they're
80s and early
good.
90s.
Yeah.
And so I always loved the idea of babysitting and stuff. And so I wrote like a series and illustrated them, just hand wrote, like it's called the Best Friends series when I was like in seventh and eighth
Aw,
grade. It was me and my two friends. So that was like my earliest writing. They were just short stories and they were fiction, but based on my friends and me and
sure.
stuff. Yeah. And so the first time I wrote fan fiction was when I was 15. It was from Disney's Aladdin, which I was a huge fan of back in the 90s. And it was before I even knew about fan fiction. I
Right,
wasn't
right.
online,
What
right?
is it?
Yeah, so I heard the term in 98 when I started college. I decided to get an email address and connect and see if there were other people who were like me who were into this. And that was the first time I heard of fan art and fan fiction. And so that was kind of what started the whole process of connecting with other fans in a fandom. And so that was my earliest was the Aladdin. And then in 2003, I got really into Harry Potter. So I was into the Harry Potter world for about a decade. I wrote novel length stories and I loved fan fiction because I loved the idea of taking this other world that someone's created. And if you didn't like what happened in the books or the books weren't finished yet at the time, and speculating what would happen or
Mhm.
asking the question, what if this happened instead of that? And so I wrote fan fiction until around 2013, and then I decided to kind of step away, and I was always wanting to write original stuff. And I had an idea back in 2006 to write a book based on my late grandmother who passed in 95. I was very close with her. And I had written a couple of chapters, but really hadn't done much past that. I was intimidated with the thought of like
Mm.
writing my own original. Because when you're writing
Yes.
fan fiction, you're playing with other people's characters, right? They're
Right,
already
right.
established. So in 2015, I sat down and I said, I'm going to write this book. Even if no one else reads it, I'm going to write this book. And so I didn't share what I wrote with anybody. I didn't have any other writers or anything at the time. And I wrote my first book, Hannah's Rainbow, which was based on my grandma's life. And so I joined a writers group at my local library in 2016. And I was shocked to see how many other local writers there are. And many of my really close friends now in real life are other
Yes.
writers. Yeah, which is
Mhm.
amazing. So I'm in two writer groups now that meet on Zoom, and we read and critique each other's chapters every
Mhm.
couple of weeks. And so I have since written, I'm on my 10th manuscript, but I have six published books and a seventh one coming out in March. So I never imagined that I would write that much original stuff. And then I just got back into fan fiction last year with Elizabeth and Lucas
Mm.
because it was the first thing in a long time that I really felt compelled to dive into because I love their love story, as many of you guys on here are fans of. And I called it After the Kiss because the last, season 8 ended with the kiss. And so it was just kind of while we're waiting for the next season, let's pass the time. And I started reading other people's fan fiction and writing it, and it just got it back into that, but also continuing to write my original stuff too.
Now, before we talk more about your fan fiction, I wanted to share. I have some copies of your work with your name. So you use Cynthia Hilston, right? And we can find these where?
They're on Amazon.
Yeah.
They're in paperback and Kindle, and two of them I do have in hardback, but I have to still put the others up. That's a new thing, but they are all on Amazon if you look up Cynthia Hilston. And my website is cynthiahilston.com, so pretty pretty straightforward.
All right. So you even have a website too. Okay.
Mhm.
You know what? I will put that in the description. So if anybody comes to see this once it posts, they'll be able to access it that way on YouTube. So what I love now, how about the cover art? Like when I write, I have no say. Well, that's not true. Most of the publishers that I had to work with, not there was many, there was one, there's four. I had no say in what the cover art was, except for the fifth one I did. Is this all you, or is this someone
So,
else?
a lot of it is, a lot of it, that one was like a free stock image.
Okay.
There is, I
You
think
have
it's called unsplash.com, where you can search for, you can kind of put keywords in,
Mhm,
and you can search for if you're kind of looking, if you kind of know what you're looking for.
mhm.
And I was looking for something like a garage or a dingy garage, because in that book, he works in like an auto repair shop back in the 30s, and it's just like in this dingy old garage behind like someone's house, and I imagined that was what the window looked like. And I
Yes,
kind of like the contrast between like the caged in, and then outside beyond it you've got like the life of the plants, and it's
yes,
about a
beauty.
young man trying to reinvent his life and get over his addiction to alcohol. And
Right,
so it's he even does jail time in the book, and
yes.
so it's to kind of show those things. But my one book, you don't have it, but it's mile marker 139. There's a picture of a mile marker sign along the Ohio Turnpike. I actually took that picture myself. But most of them are just free stock images. And then I use canva.com to, it's mostly free. Sometimes maybe you pay $1 to use some of their fonts and stuff, but I do design my own covers for the most part, and just
So
using, free stuff.
this is why I'm asking you this, and now that makes sense because I feel like often there can be if you know if you're writing for a publishing house and they have control over the artwork, there's a disconnect because they're not the illustrator. I mean, they're not the writer. They don't know what the feeling should be, and this is perfect when I from what is in the storyline, so it matches because that's all you. And the scene, this I thought was interesting. This one. This is the other story. I'm going to read a little piece of this. What I find interesting is, and then the hot on the spigot, I guess, is that what you want to call it? Like the what is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where the water comes out.
Right.
Yeah, the knob.
It's says hot and they're like, "Oh, and it's is did you do that on purpose? Like what's the story behind this one?"
So that, first of all, that book is a departure from the type of stuff I usually write.
Okay, it is.
It is a psychological thriller and a horror. I generally write stuff that's family focused,
Mhm.
pretty clean, more like the
Very
Winchell's
family
heart.
focused
Yeah,
brothers, right? Yes.
yeah, and usually people having to overcome an
Mhm.
internal struggle, self versus self. And so that book, Murder It's All in Your Head, was the first time I had to create an actual villain, which was a lot of fun. And making kind of a sympathetic villain who
Mhm.
has a very troubled past, but at the same time, becoming a monster to the point that she's not human anymore, if you will. And so the opening scene in that book involves a bathtub.
Mhm.
And so that book was written on a dream that I had, just a
Oh,
random dream where I was proofing things other people had written in the library, and that opening scene in that book was something in the dream that I was reading. And I woke up and I said, but like my head came up with that. Like I have to write this down. And then it turned
yes.
into that story. So
And actually, that's a cool thing. I remember when, like I used to have a contract and I had to have a book out every year. And because of my teaching, I would do all my writing in the summer. And so I had crazy deadlines. And I remember like I'd be driving down the road and I had to get my phone and I had to sort of like leave them this, believe it or not, like before we really had the a capability on cell phones, because I started writing when I was young. I would have to call my answering machine and then leave myself a message and say something like blah, 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 blah that I wanted, right? So that when I got home, it was there. And when the rest of my family was at home, they'd be like, people are like, what's that? Because they can hear the answer machine. Oh, she's just leaving herself a message. Because when you wake up, you need to write it down. So many people have said that they had a dream and it turned out to be a really good, like, even if it's just a piece for the plot. So, I mean, that's your creative brain. That's you're very artsy, very creative. I love that. I love it's coming out. I want to read this little tiny piece to everyone. So this one's called Murder, It's All in Your Head. Okay. And there's the author right there, Cynthia. And she's having a conversation. And it says, Helen didn't cry out as her mother's hand made contact with her cheek. The sting clung to her skin as she lifted her hand and stared at her mother with a challenge, with betrayal. You won't talk about your father that way. He's a good man, holy, doing the good Lord's work. Only God is holy. Your father had to pull himself up by his bootstraps from a young man. What with being raised by those hillbillies and a father who drank and beat his children, be glad you have a roof over your head and a meal on the table 3 times a day, a father with a stable job, and a mother who is willing to cover for you when you are inappropriate and lazy. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, cover for me? You lie to protect him. I'm your daughter. And Helen stood as rage fueled her, and she fisted her hands at her side. And I'm like, ooh. Good. All right. I am loving it. Do you have a new book coming out?
Yeah. It's called Ariana. It comes out March 12th. So you can pre-order Kindle on Amazon.
Yes.
And the paperbacks will be available a little before then, but you can order paperbacks through Amazon. But if anybody, especially I know lots of people here are in the Lucas and Elizabeth group and do know me, you can always private message me on Facebook if you want, or if we're already friends on Facebook. If you do want me to mail you a copy directly and I can sign it, I'd be happy to do that too. So Ariana it's a modern day kind of romance, but it's about a young woman who's kind of overcoming a lot of struggles from her past. She was something happened to her at a young age that kind of scarred her. She had a bad reputation. She just lost her parents in the beginning of the book. So she's kind of, she's 25 and she hasn't yet made a decision of where she wants to take her life. And so she meets this young man who's in theater, and it's kind of funny. They work at a call center. And he kind of challenges her. He's kind of like, I don't know if you have those people in your life who they sort of get under your skin a little and you kind of get annoyed at them because they do challenge you, but they're kind of right. And he kind of pushes her in a good way. And so Mark tells Ariana, like, what's your heart song? And your heart song is like that thing that you're meant to do. Like what I say, God gives you talents and you should use them, right? And so Ariana is trying to figure out, and she actually wants to be a writer. So I do have other characters in my stories sometimes who are writers because I always kind of relate to that. So
yes, it is easy when that happens. I remember when I first started writing, they were like, write what you know. When you first start out, make sure you know it. Don't try to, be a detective and you have no idea, because then it won't be authentic. And then, you branch out from there, the more you get to write. So I was just showing them that you signed mine.
Yep.
Now, it will be out when? What did you say? Did you give
March
us a date?
12th.
March
March
12th.
12th, Saturday.
Saturday. So it's soon. It's not much
Yeah,
after.
a week after 6 days after When Calls the Heart starts.
A big premiere. Okay, so now you have this talent of writing, and you said it was the first time in a long time that you wanted to do the fan fiction, and you decided to write about Lucas and Elizabeth. So what is it that you love about? I mean, what isn't there that you love about them? But what is
I know. It's like, well, what's not to love, right? It's like when people say, oh, what's a fault with Lucas? I'm like, oh, he doesn't have any. Come
I
on.
know he doesn't.
Oh no. So my husband's gonna make fun of me when he watches this back because he
That's
says that
okay.
Lucas is too perfect.
Okay. Yeah. He has
Ladies, you might
flaws,
not
but they're good
disagree.
flaws.
Right. Well, so I've been watching When Calls the Heart. I wasn't watching it right from the very beginning, but I saw it advertised on Netflix several years ago, and I think the first 3 seasons were already on Netflix. And I binge watched it because you can do that on Netflix. And
Mhm.
so I know from season 4, I've been watching it then live as it would play. And I, of course, love a good romance story. I love a lot of the
Mhm.
stories I do write are historical fiction. I love the first half of the 20th century. I love the clothing. I love, the hairstyles, the music, just I just love that stuff. And so I love the setting of it. It's beautiful. And so um when Jack died, I was stunned, because I
Yeah.
at the time I was not on Facebook. I was not a super fan. I wasn't
Right.
like going and looking for spoilers or anything. So I had no
Mhm.
idea. No idea.
Mhm.
I was shocked. And I thought, oh, he can't really be dead. I didn't know Daniel Lissing, I think is his last name, was
Yes.
leaving. I had no idea.
Right.
So, after season 5 ended, I had no idea what was come. And so season 6 starts, and I see like these new characters that they're introducing. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. There's 2 guys. Okay. So I was just watching. I was just more of a casual, just kind of watching, seeing what happens. And so in season 6, I wasn't like really like pulled one way or the other. I just was watching it to see what would happen.
Sure.
Um, and so once we got to season 7, and Lucas really shows an interest in Elizabeth's writing, that spoke to me as a writer. And so I had actually kind of forgotten about how she had tried getting published with before.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of know it's really hard to get into the publishing industry. And today it's probably even harder than back then because there's so much competition.
Sure, sure.
So when Lucas took an initiative to help her out, I thought that was really sweet. But really what cemented it for me was the Union City trip. And I think that's probably a lot of people's like
Mhm.
aha moment. Cause
Yes.
I'm like, whoa, like, okay, he's not shy about
Mm-mm.
asking
Mm-mm.
her to go, but he's always been very careful, like letting her make the decisions. He's
Yeah.
never been pushy. I think he pushes her just enough. Like,
Mhm.
I say he's kind of like the character Mark in my story, Ariana, like, challenges her just enough, but in a good way. But still lets her make the decision, isn't overbearing. And so when they went to Union City and they're having the conversation and, oh, I don't even like mushrooms. Oh, there's mushrooms in this.
Mhm.
Um, and when
And
he
you've
actually
never forgotten that.
right. And then he talks about, wanting to have a family and settling in Hope Valley and stuff. That was really, I mean, the first indication that he wanted that. Cause I mean, I was like, whoa, really? I had no idea. And so that conversation there kind of really just made me say, okay, I want her to be with this guy. And even it's funny when I saw the preview for that Union City, I got like all excited and I wasn't even sure why. I was like something inside of me knew like, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, is she going on a date? Like
Yes.
like
No, it was an undate.
yeah, I know, like, oh, it's not a date, it's not a
One of
date.
what? Many that she had. Many undates or no date.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me that really cemented it. And so once we got through season 7, and it's so funny, you look back and you're like, oh, that hug, of course she was just traumatized thinking she lost Jack again and stuff, but at the end of it I'm like, what? No. What's going on? No. And I was like, I replayed that part and where Lucas walks out and like the look on his face, I'm like, Elizabeth, you were just like in an undate, he was like giving you champagne in the library and celebrating your book and all this. And you go and hug Nathan. What are you doing? And of
Yeah.
course he's
Yeah.
crushed. Of course he had to leave
Mhm.
and come back in 8. And so all through 8, I was like, really like, oh, so about halfway through 8 was when I joined the Lucas and Elizabeth group on Facebook. Because at that point I was like, I could see every week they were building. To me as a writer, it seemed very obvious that, this isn't narrative misdirection. This is building a love story, and it's Hallmark. Come on. It's Hallmark. It's romance. And it would make no sense, like, the farther we got into the season to like back away, even up until the 11th hour when he has to let her go. Like, I'm like, it makes no sense to say Nathan is going to wind up with her. And I had this conversation with a couple of people when I was still on some of the other groups, and they were like, what? No, you're wrong. I'm like, okay, I'm just telling you, if you're looking at how a story works, she's
exactly my point. I'm sorry. I mean, this is my point, because not only am I a writer, but because I retired from writing professionally, but I teach. This is what I teach. I teach literature. I teach it at college level, and then I teach it to fifth graders. And at the fifth grade level, I say, pay attention, because nothing a writer writes is just to take up space, because your editor's going to tell you to take that out, and our children are reading bestsellers or award-winning novels, because it's good literature. So I say you have to pay attention. Now, for me, I've watched it from the beginning, no binge watching. I literally watched it in real time. And by the time when they first met, I'm like, I said, I want to see how they introduce these two characters to her. Like, and I saw right away when they connected over books. And I'm like, okay, they're connecting. I know where this is going to go. And then every scene after that, there was a little hint about needing a library. Oh, I wish we had a library. Oh, I need even the students. Oh, you got your books, you take exchange. And then I'm like, this is her man. I knew it. I just knew it. Yeah. And there's all the little things that go along the way, and people don't pay attention to them.
Yeah. Like, and it's so funny. Retrospectively, I've gone back and then rewatched it. Like in 2020, when everything was locked down, I binge watched like from the very beginning up through, season 6, and then 7 came out. And so this year, after season 8 finished, I went back from 6 and watched 6, 7, and 8. And there were parts I had forgotten, even though I'd seen it through a couple of times. And of course, all the Lucas and Elizabeth scenes I've watched like over and over again and skipped over those.
Yes.
But I was like, oh my goodness, like, look at how like Nathan was just so abrasive with Lucas, like, oh, you don't seem like a good fit for this town. And I was like, the part where Opal got scared, because the kids were reading, and was it Edgar Allan Poe or something they were reading, and poor Opal gets scared, and Allie, I can't remember everything that happened, but like Nathan,
they were in the library reading a story of themselves, and they got help, and then she tricked them in the woods.
Yes, that's right. And so Nathan though is like, oh yeah, he's a lover, all right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, come on. Like, because but I like how she's like, you can't blame Lucas or the library.
And she said, like, I'm sorry for you. And it makes him think, though. And she says, I'm sorry for you that you're always expecting the negative in someone or the bad. There's a lot too that I saw for his character as a writer. We knew he had a backstory. We knew that we were going to eventually get little pieces of it. So now we understand him more. But again, you're right. I always knew it was going to be Lucas and Elizabeth. So I have a question. Do you know where your fan fiction is going? Do you have an end for it? Because I know, talking to Janine Marie, she has like an end. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, Janine, right? Janine's end is what we see first. Like, so she knows in her story where it's going. Do you have an end or no?
Yeah, so I actually have finished it.
Okay.
In general, when I write a story, I do know my general end, because I like to have that goal. I don't always like write that down. Sometimes I will write out of order in my original stuff, just because if I have something down, I'm like, okay, I have to figure out how I'm going to get there. But I started writing it in like May, and then I finished it in December, I think. And so it's about 90K words. And so I was like, this is a good book length, and I'm satisfied with, I feel like I accomplished what I set out to do. The first couple of chapters, I was kind of just rewriting the last couple of scenes from, the kiss on the bridge and then the library scene.
Yes.
And then kind of expanded it a little bit after that. But a lot of the things I was writing about was just, things that we're finding out are going to happen, like, Lucas being more involved in little Jack's life and reading to him and coming into Elizabeth's house and, just more moments of them together. And for me, my story was focused either from his point of view or hers, not in first person, but close third person.
Yes.
And so I like to, so you either knew just his thoughts or her thoughts. And so I really wanted to just focus in on them versus like the TV show where other characters get time. My story is primarily just about them, and other characters come in as needed. But I kind of explored some of the things, like when Chris said, "Oh, what would happen if like Lucas almost lost his money?" And I put Lucas through the ringer a few times. He lost somebody in his life very close to him. I tend to do that in a lot of my books, where I have a loved one die because I'm horrible like that. And I sort of take I shouldn't say I take enjoyment in making my characters suffer, but I feel like you have to make, like, a good story is going to make your character go through some really hard trials because they have to grow from that.
Sure.
And, I wanted to see like Lucas, like raw emotionally. I wanted to see him cry. I wanted to see Elizabeth be the one to comfort him,
Yes.
not always him being the one to do it for her, but I would love to see her doing that more for him. Like, I would love it if there was like, I'm not saying I want harm to befall him, but I would love it if like she had to like comfort him, or, I don't know, like, because, I think men, we sometimes think of as like, oh, men don't cry and men gotta, be a man. And, the women were the ones who are crying all the time. And
Right.
I kind of like the idea of just making his character especially vulnerable and kind of playing with that, because that isn't something we've seen it in season 8 more. We've seen the more serious, vulnerable side of Lucas, but I kind of took it and really said, like, can we really like just, oh, okay, he's going to lose this person. Now he's going to lose this. And now he's going to lose that. And he's going to question, does Elizabeth even want to still be with a man like me? Because I can't, what can, and so, but of course, wanting to write the engagement, wanting to write the wedding, all that stuff that we all want to see happen. I just am too impatient to wait for it on the TV. So I had to write about it.
That's okay. I mean, people are loving and enjoying it. Now that you said you have your end and now you're going to go and watch, or do you think that you would pick up and do something a little different? Like something that maybe I was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody wrote the story of little Jack?
Yeah, like as he grows up, or is
Yes.
he?
Like he's already grown up and then we're flashing back and
Oh,
telling the
yeah.
story.
Yeah, that would be interesting because like he's gonna be 3 now, and now that they've got Highland in there and he's a little chatterbox, he's so cute.
Cute.
He's getting older and he's gonna know, like he didn't know his biological father, but obviously Lucas is gonna be like his father. He's gonna be the only dad he knows, and it would be really interesting to explore, like, my mom started bringing this man around all of a sudden, and he was just, all of a sudden I had a dad. And, I'm just trying to think, like, when I was that young, like, I have very vague memories when I was like 2 or 3, but I think like he wouldn't remember a time before Lucas
That's
being in his
true.
life,
Yes. Like
And
what it would be
so,
like.
but like seeing his mom marry him, that would be interesting to explore. Like, I mean, I think he's going to be totally on board with it because I see Lucas and little Jack have a wonderful relationship.
Right.
But it would be interesting as he gets older, and if there's other kids, I'm sure there would be, just that dynamic and stuff, and just, I don't know like what it would be like, you're growing up without knowing your biological father, but what questions would he have? And, because I know Elizabeth has told him about his father and stuff. We've seen him.
Sure. Now I'm thinking too, I mean, his father has left a legacy. I mean, he
Mhm.
was all those people love him. Like Jack could tell wonderful stories, and I'm sorry, Jack is Bill. I'm Jack Wagner Bill. Like Bill could tell wonderful stories. Lee could tell. I mean, even Rosemary has a childhood memories of his father.
That's
So that
true.
would be neat as those people interacted with him, and if he had felt like he had to live up to one or really loved one more than the other because he knew the other one. So I'm like, someone
Yeah.
write it because I can't
Yeah.
do it.
Aw. There he goes. Yeah, I don't know. Like I never with fan fiction, like when I quit writing it years ago, I said, oh, I didn't say I was done for good. I said if the inspiration strikes, you never know. And
Mhm.
so the inspiration struck to write this. And I wrote a couple of like one shots when we were kind of getting toward the end of season 8, and we were kind of trying to guess what was going to happen in the next episode. So, but
Mhm.
they were just really short and just trying to piece together based on what we knew. And it was just, speculation. And so, like, that was fun. But I didn't think, I told a few people, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to write any like novel length. I'm just writing like I lied.
Well, you know what? You didn't lie. It just you couldn't help yourself.
I
At the
know.
time, you really thought you weren't.
Yeah, so I just, the season got done and I don't know, it just kind of, when you're a writer and you get an idea, you got to just if you don't write it down, you're going to forget it. And so you just start writing and it's so fun to just see where it's going to take you. And
Yeah.
so I'm working on a really short Lucas and Elizabeth right now called a pause, a turn, a return, which it's not going to be nearly as long, but it's kind of
Oh,
based on that comment about like something gives Elizabeth pause,
pause.
about Lucas's
Yeah.
past. And, some of us were kind of talking in the Facebook chat a few weeks ago about, oh, what could it be? And I'm like, I don't know. I had this crazy idea, blah, 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 so.
Right, right. Well, okay, so you're not done. I'm gonna cough. I'm sorry. I have a tickle. What speaking of this, didn't you tell me that there is like a pretty like it's been growing membership-wise, a fan fiction page on
Yes.
Facebook? Can you tell us what
Yes.
that is?
Yeah, it's the Lucas and Elizabeth fan fiction group. We started it about 6 months ago. Another of my friends, Sue Marie Kelly, who's also in the Lucas and Elizabeth official group on Facebook. She also writes fan fiction. I actually had read a couple of her stories before I even started writing mine.
Mhm.
And I know she's working on one right now. And she came to me privately and asked, like, hey, there's a lot of fan fiction writers, including the two of us. What do you think about starting a group? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. So she and I started the group as the admins about 6 months ago. And I am stunned at how much has grown. We are at 1.4K members, which I'm just like, I have no idea. I had no idea there was going to be such a, yeah, I mean, it's really a lot in the last month or two. It's really like grown a lot. And I think there's just a lot of excitement maybe about season 9. And but there's a lot of Janine is in it. She's an admin, and we have a few other people, Carolyn and Susie and Terry, who are friends through the Lucabeth connection here,
Mhm.
who are mods on that. So the 6 of us, because we grew so much that Sue and I were like, oh my, we can't even handle like how many people, so we need help. But yeah, there are lots of writers. There have been so many people who are writing ongoing, like novel length things
Oh.
that are posting regularly in that group. So if you're looking for fan fiction, I definitely would recommend the Lucas and Elizabeth fan fiction group because every time somebody updates their, with a new chapter, they post it. So yeah,
So it's Lucas and Elizabeth fan fiction group. Is that what it's called?
it's the you know what? Let me go to Facebook really fast. It's the Lucas and
Sure.
Elizabeth fan fiction. This is terrible that I'm
Okay.
my
I
brain's
mean,
like, oh, let me log in.
and then while you're looking, we have like we're going to everyone that's out there, I see all your questions and your beautiful comments. You know, I'll address them at the end. And then Cindy, she's looking that up. Cindy, you'll make sure you tell us your name too, like, because it's different
Oh,
with
sure.
your fan fiction.
Yeah, so it's actually it's the WCTH, so for When Calls the Heart. So it's
Mhm.
WCTH and then Lucas and Elizabeth fan fiction is what it's called. We are at 1.5K. I stand corrected. I just keep
Grown
growing.
already.
Yeah, and Janine has made lovely graphics for the banner because that is not my talent. But yeah,
Mine neither.
it's a wonderful group. So if you're looking to read fan fiction, I
Is that
recommend
it?
it.
When Calls the Heart, Lucas and
Yeah,
Elizabeth fan
fan
fiction?
fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, just fan
All right.
fiction.
Now
That's
you
it.
keep
And
it up
yeah,
there.
if you want to look for me on fanfiction.net, I am Cindy, but Sindie on there. That was my alias, my pen name that I made up years ago.
Am I getting
Online.
that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yes,
Sindie.
Cindy.
Okay.
So if you are looking for me on Facebook, on fanfiction.net, that's what you would look for. Yep.
Okay. I was able to find it because somehow your real name was linked to it one way or another. I don't know if I
Yeah.
cross-referenced it or not, but I found
Yeah, I
it.
do have my picture on there,
Yes,
and
maybe
I
that's what
do
it was.
have my real name listed because I do write on there that I write, original works too. So if I put my real name so people can look for me.
Sure. They better go look for you on Amazon. Again, I'm going to link your website on in the description. So let's talk a little bit about When Calls the Heart season 9 before we dive into all these comments and questions. Do you have a wish list? Is there what are your top 5 things that
Oh my
you must
goodness.
see?
So
Come
I feel like
on.
we've already been so spoiled with all
I
these prizes
know
and
we have.
creatures, and like all these things are coming true.
I know.
Um,
I know. I
right?
know.
I mean, obviously, like I said, Lucas being with little Jack. So we can't hear the naysayers saying, "Oh, he's never with little Jack."
No,
Come
no.
on now. That's not true. We know that from the earlier seasons. But I mean, when we saw the latest of him reading Till LJ in the bed, I was like, oh my goodness, my heart. I just think reading, and I mean, of course he's going to read to him. And I'm like, what a fatherly thing to do. And Elizabeth is at the door looking in. I'm like,
I
she's like
know.
having a
I
proud mama wife moment. I'm like, they're already married. I mean, come
They are.
on.
They
I'm
are.
like, of course, him coming into her house, and I know we know he does. I hope we get to see it for the first time. Because that's a huge deal. Like him coming into her house is like he never would do it before, even though she said several times, "Oh, come in." And I feel like
You didn't
now he
say
was
right.
waiting to be able to cross that threshold, to be,
Sure.
officially being with her, and there not being this question of it. And now that he is, I really hope we see the first time he comes in. And then, it's like, I look at it as like her personal, her sacred space. But the fact that he's in, I don't know if it's little Jack's room. I saw some stuff today about how the room
Yeah.
looked different. I'm just going to assume it's little Jack's room.
Mhm.
But I'm like, he's up in his bedroom. Like that is like super intimate. Like that is super Elizabeth already has him as yes, he's father and husband material. Like there
Yes.
is no doubt. So if anybody tries to say, oh, they're gonna break up, no, Nathan never got invited up into little Jack's room to read to him. So going back to the wish list, I would love to see an engagement. I would love to see as I said, we know there's a fire or something, and I have this speculation that not that anything really bad happens to Lucas, but that Elizabeth gets really worried for his safety, because she's already lost Jack. And so the thought of losing another man who she loves and realizing how precious life is and how fleeting life is, I hope that something happens where I don't know what gives her pause, but then there's this fire. She worries his life was in danger. She finds out he's okay, or maybe he's slightly injured or something. And then he asked her to marry him, and I hope that it ends with her saying yes. Like, I would love to see like that cement that like engagement there, because she is like, maybe she's like, she knows she wants to get married to him, because we saw Rosemary kind of teasing, you know,
Teaser.
and you could tell Elizabeth was like, well, yes, but let's slow down, you know.
Yeah, yes, yes. Let me
So it's kind
enjoy
of
it. Yeah.
right. And so I was like, I would love to see though an engagement. I think that I don't think a wedding's going to happen. You know, I would love to see a wedding, of course, but I think that's going to be next season, like season 10, which of course we're getting. Um,
We will.
so I hope we have I hope we have an engagement in this season.
Okay.
Um, and I hope we just have lots, and I can say this for sure, we're going to get lots of just Lucas and Elizabeth intimate moments, just lots of hand holding and hugging and snuggling and kisses and just, and I guess I'll say like what I was talking about before in my fanfic, where she is the one who has to comfort him. I would love to see
Yes.
her, you know, and she did do that in season 8 when he was worried about Henry and came into his office and stuff. Like, I
Right.
think he was almost kind of like shocked, like, oh my goodness, like, and very touched that like she would come and seek him out, you know. And so I would love for her to just, you know,
You know what I loved about that scene? They really had not done much more than hold hands. So, you know that in real life, when you're emotional like that and someone comes to comfort you, often it leads to like even more comfort, like a kiss or something more physical. And
mhm,
so I think she was feeling that and they wanted us to feel it with her, yet he was strong enough to like say no. Like he wasn't just thinking about himself, even though he was so upset. And you know, he gets
mhm.
up, he stretches and all when he gets off that little chair, and she's like looking around so stunned, and he's like very casual, you know, she's got to go fan herself, get out of the office kind of thing. I love that because then we knew that this is like this she's not just emotionally attached to him, she was physically attracted to him. So
Mhm.
it's a good thing. I mean, there are so many signs. But anyway, I really do want to see more of her comforting him because now they've already kissed, their hands are always all over each other, so it'll be a good scene, like, you know what I mean, she'll want to hold him and comfort him. So I'm excited to see what that is like. And in my mind, I'm not so sure that the pause is they put stuff like that in there, I think, to tease us because now
Oh
we're
yeah,
all talking about it. You know, we
of
don't write,
course.
we're writers writing that promo. They don't put things in accidentally. Just like all the behind the scenes that we were given by Peter. If you look now, all of the promo stuff that we have is linked behind to those behind the scenes. Nothing
Mhm.
we were given except, and this one was leaked accidentally. We got to see the ice cream shop, but now they've leaked some of that info too.
Mhm.
Everything that wasn't by Peter, but everything they've linked everything that they shared is linked to what they're sharing now. Even
Mhm.
though we might have known it, like the big giant ladder and them hanging off of it, and that's because that was for the visual effects of the balloon and whatnot.
Mhm.
So anyway, I really do think that we will see like a pause could be her. Maybe she's feeling that she's not adventurous enough. I don't
Mhm.
know. It could be anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so worldly, you know, he's traveled
Right.
so much, and maybe she's worried that like, because he said he hadn't settled down until coming to Hope Valley, and his
Yeah.
there's that cut scene where his mom is talking to Bill and about how he's like a restless spirit or
Yeah.
something, you know, and so maybe Elizabeth gets that, I don't know, sense, oh, is he restless? Is he really going to be content to settle down here with me? You know.
Mhm. But he also said that when he was talking to Jeanette on the phone, he's like, "You're right. This is a good place to live." And I think that he, especially since he had to save her life and her being Jeanette, the woman that we have not met,
Right.
and then that's her name, right? It is Jeanette. Yeah, it's
Yes.
Jeanette. And then also like his life was at in danger, probably in my mind is what he was like, you know what, I do want to settle down, I'm going to find a nice place and I'm going to settle. And then he happens to run into someone immediately that he falls in love with. So I feel like was definitely ready. And
Mhm.
and the more we learn about him, she's going to find out that he was, he's done some amazing things. So
Yeah.
I love your list because I think it's all of our list for everybody that's here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Let's go and let's check out what everyone in the chat is asking over here. You can see it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got your chat open. All right, let's
Yeah.
move up. I don't want to make you nauseous as I move up to look. So we have lots of beautiful comments and questions, but I wanted to start from the beginning. I think, and I remember seeing this, I think Janine Marie was asking, what is your, like when you go to write, what's your environment look like your office or wherever it is that you do your writing?
Okay. So it's not this room. This is our spare room upstairs. My room's downstairs is kind of where I have my little desk and stuff. And so I generally work in the morning or the afternoon. In the evening, I am too tired.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I light a couple of candles if it's a dreary day. So I have my little desk with my computer and my cat sometimes in my lap, and I
Oh,
usually have a cup of coffee or tea there with me, and it's generally pretty straightforward. I don't usually go to Starbucks. I don't listen to music or anything. I know some people like to have even classical music. I'm
mhm.
like the kind of person who needs quiet. If it's beautiful outside, I wouldn't mind the window being open and hearing the birds. I really wish that was the case right now.
No,
We have about a foot of snow here. So,
me too.
so, that's generally, it's nothing too exciting, but, just I do have laptops. So if I have to take it, I have taken it sometimes to Panera and worked and,
Oh,
but I like sometimes that atmosphere more. Starbucks is too noisy and there's too many people. I live in suburbia, so I'm not like a big city person. But I definitely would love it if I had some nature scene outside my window. I don't. There's just other houses.
okay.
But it's nice to just kind of, like I said, light a couple of candles and have that smell and just,
And then
you know,
it transports you there, it
yeah,
relaxes you.
a nice
There was
warm
a
drink.
there was a movie, actually, I just interviewed Clayton James, so he was in Don't played Kevin. He was Kevin on When Calls the Heart, the blacksmith. Do you remember
Mhm.
that?
Yes.
So he was in a movie called Don't Forget I Love You. And one of the things that the character, his daughter was always anxious and nervous. And she said she had essential oils and instead of a candle and it went through the air and
Mhm.
lavender was relaxing. She put something different every day. So the sense of smell does transport
Mhm.
people, relax them or, get them into the mood of whatever it is that they're doing. So
Mhm.
I like that idea too. I love smells. Like
Yeah.
they can really trigger a memory, right?
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So someone was saying hi, and then this is Teresa. She says, I love your Lucas Elizabeth fanfic. Every chapter left me wanting more.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. So you've got boatloads of comments. Absolutely loved After the Kiss. And that's Janine Marie. What is your spate? Here it is. And this is what she was asking, and you answered
Mm.
it. Yeah. And again, just lots of loving After the Kiss, loved After the Kiss. It's cold here in Iowa. Need to reread it again. Oh, this is a different question. This is from Marion. Could you relate to Elizabeth's journey to get her book published? Was your process similar?
I do understand, I know she was rejected the first time,
Hmm.
and I definitely know how it feels to get those rejections. So, when I was writing my first book, I had no idea how hard it was, and so you have to write what's called a query letter, which is mostly what you would call your blurb. It's like, how
Yes.
do you take something that's 100,000 words and condense it into 300 words to describe what your book is about? And
Yes.
then you have to find agents who are looking for your genre. You have to know what your genre is, and if they're accepting submissions. And so I went through this whole process with my first two books of trying to get an agent and, just got rejections. There's a lot you don't even hear from. And with that, you just email. But after that, I wound up self-publishing those. And so since then, I've just self-published them because I just kind of realized it is a lot harder than you would ever imagine to get into publishing. And so I wish, like, I almost wish, like, with Elizabeth, like, you didn't have as much competition 100 years ago as you do now. It seems like everybody wants to write a book.
It's
you
true.
know?
Yeah, even more. But the publishing industry has really, taken a hit, especially in the past, even like 20 years ago, I had people who were doing ebooks and doing their own thing. And now that's the way people go because
Mhm.
there's so much competition, and sometimes it's not because your story isn't amazing, it's because somebody's idea in the publishing house is this is our theme for this month and it doesn't fit, you know
Exactly.
right? Or they've got a slush pile, because I was an editor, that's like
Yeah.
huge, and your
Mhm.
story just doesn't get read.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'll never forget one time we would submit, now it's digital, we'd submit, have to put it in an envelope with all
Oh,
that stuff.
yeah.
And it came back with cat hair. And my sister is so allergic to cat hair. But anyway, I was like, my gosh, like, well, at least I knew somebody read it, like the feedback. But it is hard. But it's okay before people like, oh, you self-published. No, you know what's good. You're gonna do it, put it together. This is their books are gorgeous, wonderful stories, and that's a good thing. Um, I'm gonna did I miss what you were saying? Oh, wait a minute, did I miss this? This is the one I wanted to say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we did that already,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
So this is just Janice saying it's so enjoyable to be able to venture into what might occur with Lucas and Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing your talents. And it's true I mean, that's what we love that. Like you're thinking what we're thinking, but you had the talent to put it into words and make us read it like and believe it. I'm trying to think. Let's see. You were right in terms of narrative. That would make no sense. Oh, I must have missed what happened above it.
That might have been when we were talking about season 8 with how
Okay.
it was, it was obvious that it was Lucas. I think that's
Yes.
what that was
Yes.
talking. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
What else do we have? People are talking to each other. Oh, people agreeing. Like, I knew it was Lucas at their first meeting, and then the books and library, and then helping her get published. Just cemented that Lucas was going to be with Elizabeth. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's see. What else we have? Oh, the things that he said to her when they were in Union City. These are just everyone agreeing. Let's see. Do you go back and rewatch episodes as you write your fan fiction? Oh,
I do. I could definitely tell you when I wrote the first couple of chapters of After the Kiss, because I really needed to rely on the bridge kiss scene and then the library scene.
mhm,
I was like looking and like stopping, going back a few seconds. Okay, what expression are they making? How are their eyes moving? And like wanting all
mhm.
those details. Because when I was writing it out, I wanted it to be very specific. And then even like describing that more. And if I wanted to make sure I had a detail right, as I was just kind of writing my own stuff, yeah, I definitely had to do, especially the Lucas and Elizabeth parts, because I wanted to be like, okay, what did he say exactly to her?
Right, right.
I don't want to like paraphrase.
You want it to be, like, authentic. I like,
Mhm,
even, when you're writing and you're describing body language, you have to get
mhm,
it right, and they already are established characters, so they already have
mhm.
specific body languages. Like, there's always going to be like, always a reaction that she will make or he will make, and, like, he does that little here with, like, nuzzles her nose, like, with her nose.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, so
very sweet.
yeah, so those are little things that you wanna pick up. That's what a good writer does. Um, this is nice. I love the idea of
Mhm.
Elizabeth comforting Lucas, wondering if that is what will happen at the end of season 9, like, maybe he gets hurt in the fire or some what are your thoughts about the fire? What do you think's gonna happen with that?
Gosh, like, I'm wondering, like, how it starts because I'm like I think, like I don't think it's an accident, I think there's obviously somebody is up to no good, and
Mhm.
I don't know if it's, like I think it's the saloon that's on fire. It seems like it from that, promo, it looks
Yeah.
like the fire, is in the saloon. And I don't know if it's because, like, Lucas backed out of selling the saloon to Wyman Molden because he was almost going to sell. And, obviously he didn't. And, Walden, wouldn't take too happy to that. I don't know. Like, I don't, like, in my story, for the sake of simplicity, I kind of made Wyman Walden like the bad guy, and I know a lot of people think like he's just working for somebody, or he's kind of just doing his own
Mhm.
thing, and the Pinkertons are obviously working for somebody that we haven't yet met.
Right.
And so I think there's nefarious purposes. I think maybe Lucas, maybe there's something in the business dealings or something. He made somebody mad, and even though
Yeah.
he, because he's a honest, good businessman, and if there's somebody coming in who is not, I could see it being, arson or something.
Right. And I'm also wondering if it has, because his partner is Henry, and Henry,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's true. His
Henry's,
ties to
he
him.
can't outrun his past, and his
Hmm.
past is with Spurlock. The Spurlock relative is there. We don't know if it's his
Yeah.
brother or his cousin or something. So I'm wondering
Hmm.
if there's some kind of connection. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something,
'Cause they show Henry kind of looking down into the mine, and,
yes.
that I can't remember, yeah, I'm very curious. Yeah, that could be too, because Lucas gave Henry a chance, and sees, like, the best in him, and so that definitely could be. And isn't there something about a courtroom scene or something in,
Mhm.
like, not the last block, but maybe in episode 10, and it could be something to do with Henry, I don't know. Poor Henry's been, like, with the law, in the past, so I could see Lucas getting roped into something through that too. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Janice said, thinking about the fact that Lucas didn't really have friends when he was a child, he probably
Mhm.
didn't get to do a lot of child type things. So now he has that chance with LJ. Oh,
Mhm.
he was alone or a loner.
Mhm.
And I love that. You know what I liked about his character is, like, Allie, when Allie gets into town, the first person that she really sees is her uncle, but she doesn't spend any time with him. The person she really spends time with is Lucas,
Yeah.
right? And what he tells her and how they connect, and
Mhm.
it tells us a lot about both characters. And he understood her before anybody else did, before
Mhm.
Elizabeth did, and even before her uncle did. So
Mm.
he's great with children. That's why I knew that the way they were writing the character, that he's going to be great. So I really
Mhm.
think that you need to tell the story of little Jack.
Yeah, I being a mom myself, like, yeah, just there's a special bond between parent and child, and I also love the idea of, like, Lucas's childhood, and the story I'm writing now, I do a little bit of that backstory of when he's like about 12, and then he's a little
Mhm.
older, and just, yeah, lonely, and just being like, books are my best friend, because I can escape into any world I want, and he's constantly being, taken wherever his parents
Sure.
say you have to go, and
Yeah.
he doesn't really form a lot of connections, and he's kind of like I definitely think there's some insecurities there, and I love playing with the idea, and I did do that some in my story of, like, the scared little boy inside of him, and that's something I do with my characters too. Like, I love the idea of, like, that. What's the insecurity inside of a person? The part that they're a grown person, but there's something about them that's still that 5-year-old or that 8-year-old or that 10-year-old child who feels like they weren't understood, or they got made fun of, or they were a loner, and
Mhm.
it still kind of is part of them.
So this is Nikki. She's saying, I am a member and read the fan fiction stories all the time. That is what's getting me through until March 6th. And what you just described is, that's what good writing is, when someone makes sure, that they, like, there's a history and you bring that into the story. You just don't forget it because it happened and it's been in the past. And then
Mhm.
you circle back, and it's why they react the way they do or whatnot. That's what makes a story believable. So, they're loving your stuff over here.
Thank you, everyone.
What's this? Somebody's been looking, they found it. Janine Marie saying that we have a document where we are gathering links to the Lucabeth fanfics, over 60 stories. Wow. Oh, that's amazing. Now, as a do you read fan fiction of Lucas and Elizabeth as a writer? Do you read other people's things? Or sometimes I know we don't have time. I didn't know.
Mhm. Oh, I certainly do. I was reading like Sumeri Kelly's. She had a couple out that were written, I think, after the end of season 7. There
Hmm.
were a couple of other authors who had written novel length ones. I usually tend to look for longer ones because I kind of like to get invested in, especially if they're complete. I always get sad when I get reading a novel length and it gets abandoned. It's happened before.
Aw.
So I read a few before I actually started writing my own. And then Janine's, of course, I read hers because I love hers. And I know several people, like I mentioned, are writing stories on there. And so I try to keep up. There are a lot of stories on there I have not read, or I've read the first couple of chapters and I just can't keep up. And it's great. It's great that there's so many, but it's really hard to balance the time between my own personal writing, the fan fiction, the reading I want to do of fan fiction, the reading of
Yeah.
of actual books,
I
and
know, right? There's not enough
everything else.
time.
Right. But yeah, I do read a lot of fan fiction.
Yeah. Okay, this is so nice. So, not to put you on the spot, but something you could think about, and I know the viewers will love it. So, Kathy Watkins and I, we are going to on Monday nights after the When Calls the Heart episode is on. The next night on Mondays, we're going to review and talk about the episode. And I do have some like Matthew. He'll come back and pop in at I'm not season in episode 10 and join us. That's the first episode he's in, and Amanda will come back, and whoever else, we'll see. But Janine Marie said she would jump in one day and one night and talk with us if she can. So we're going to invite you too. We would love for you to pop in on one of the episodes and chat with us and get your, expert eye in and see
Sure.
like
That
where
would
is
be
it
fun.
going.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yes, it would. So we'll have to see how it fits in your schedule. I'm excited. I just am so
I
excited.
know. 5 weeks. Yay.
I know. This has been lovely. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Do you want to say anything before we say goodnight to our peoples?
Just thank you everybody for tuning in. I really I'm blessed to have met so many wonderful
Mhm.
Lucabeth fans and the group. I joined it last March, so it's only been like 10 months, and it was like I said today in a post, it's like my safe place and my happy place when there's other groups where there's some of the negativity to join the group. I had no idea I would make so many friends, which is wonderful. And, when you have a common thing, but then to get into the stories and, so many people here loved a good story. That's why we're
Mhm.
watching this series, because it
Sure.
really is a really, really good story. And so I just really appreciate all the support. And I just never imagined that I was going to write a novel length fanfic again. But I'm glad I did. And I just, all the people I've met, that's the big blessing, is just all the people you get to meet when you're doing something. So thank you.
I know. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to say goodnight. So before I say goodnight, be on the lookout for some fun things that we're going to be doing in February. And one of the fun things that we're going to be doing is I'm going to have Sunday school for the Hearties. So the schedule's coming out, but her name is Crystal, and she's going to come on and do like a live classes for us. We can participate if we want with her. I'll tell you what we're doing ahead of time. And it's all for like premiere parties and the countdown getting close to the premiere, like Oreo cookies, homemade Oreo cookies that are in the shape of a heart, and this cool like chalk paint countdown board that she has. And then guests are coming in. We're going to have a premiere party and a game with giveaway prizes. And then the Sunday before, because I'm just organizing it now. So the Sunday before the premiere, Janine and myself and Kathy and Div and Jillian from the Lucabeth Lounge, we will be together. And all of the little secrets and spoilers that my guests have shared that we're allowed to publicly know. We're going to speculate on what it means in the stories. So.
Look at us.
Look
We're so funny.
All right. All right.
that
Good
sounds
night,
great.
everyone. Good night.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Stay in, Cindy. I'm going to end, and then we'll just say good night in the chat.
Okay. Sure.
All right.